Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the one and only Tip Touch podcast. Okay, and today, normally, Eddie and I have been doing things, we've been ping-ponging in the virtual studio, but we are going all the way down to LA this time. LA, right?
LA.
West Coast.
Yeah.
All right.
LA.
So we're doing the Seattle, LA interweb connection. And we have a very special guest today. We're going to talk. This is going to be probably one of our, I want to say more serious things, but also, Eliah, I've heard you. You can hang. You can go with anything. So
yeah, we'll see what comes up.
We might even talk about Bigfoot. We might talk about
we
Bigfoot.
Might.
But yes. So we have Eliah Prichard, and as you can see behind me, we have her web address. See, I can try to. I haven't got this down, folks. But anyway, this is her connects right there. But we connected because our friend, not only in person but on the podcast he's been on, Christian Helly, and he got himself into coaching, and he actually left us. He abandoned us to follow his passion in life. And his passion,
can you believe it?
Isn't that weird?
The nerve.
It's like, people that get out of the redundancies of work, like a factory, working Monday through Friday. I don't know, it's weird when people follow their dreams.
I know, to be a self-employed tortured entrepreneur. I
yeah,
have
like
no idea why someone would want like me.
I think you may have been there as well.
Such a slog.
But Eliah Prichard with the Rebound Way, and we connected because apparently you and Christian are on similar journeys, and that's how you guys crossed paths. So how did you guys meet?
Christian and I met in a group program in 2020, in a group coaching program, and funneled from that program into like a smaller mastermind with some of the other coaches in that community, and have just kept in touch ever since. So Christian and I we'll do sort of monthly calls, and we cycle through how we support each other in our own journeys, because we were both sort of right at the beginning of realizing we needed to fully step into coaching and kind of honor that path for ourselves right at the same time. So we've been able to kind of go through these cycles of being really excited about moving into this, and then being really curious about what it means to be a coach, and then being terrified because you're an imposter, in a seemingly already set up community of coaches. I don't know how much you guys know really about the coaching profession, but it's so deeply personal, right? It's not like starting a business where I launched an interior design business 6 years ago, right? And it was very easy. I was like, I'm an interior designer. Here's my little mini website. Here is my business card. I know the biz. I know construction. People understand what interior design is. And you just show up and you launch it. It's super easy. But with coaching, it's so intimate, because you're like, what natural gifts do I have? What's my message? How do I want to work with people? There are literally no rules. It takes time to construct how you show up for other people. And so Christian and I have been supporting each other in that. It's been a journey.
Is that like one of the first challenges you run into, is figuring out how to find a discipline or a practice, or
in a way, right? In a way, you have to sort of self-actualize and really do your inner work in order to start working as a coach. You can, of course, get a foundation of skills, which I have from my master's program in couples and family therapy and some of my behavioral training work. But you have to tune in, right? You have to tune in, because you could do career coaching, you can do spiritual coaching, you can coach people on embodiment, you can coach people on business, you can work in corporate, you can work in retreats. There's so many ways to do it.
One thing, I have worked with Christian before, and I hear the term. It seems like, I don't know, these past couple years, everybody's a coach, and everybody, and I don't know if it's just a pandemic that has thrown everybody and given everybody this coach title, but then you come across people like you who you have a master's degree, master's in
couples and family therapy.
Yeah. And it's like, that is a title in an education and a background like that. I picture you being in your own office, your own little thing, but you have sort of taken this into a totally different direction. It's unconventional, and
Thank
and
you. Yeah, I
and that's what
try.
I yeah, well, but I'm sure there's benefits in that. And I wanted
Mhm.
to see if like why you decided to go away from the conventional means and ways of therapy to what you do here so that it can help sort of explain more what coaching is in your world, what it
Mhm.
versus the misconceptions that might come.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what do you guys think of when you like classically think of someone as a life coach?
When I hear life coach, and I'm just going to be straight up with you,
Yep.
it's I turn it
Bring
away.
it.
The first thing I hear when I hear life coach, this is where the marketing has to be done. Something has to be done in the coaching world where the good ones can be separate from the bad ones,
Mhm.
or the ones that are treating it as more of a hobby than a
Mhm.
career. And it seems like here's what it feels like. It feels like when I hear life coach, I hear this is someone who doesn't take life seriously and thinks they're going to make the easy money.
Yeah.
That's my impression.
Yeah.
And and I know with you that's not at all it.
Yeah, I think you can pretty much see. I mean, I pretty much kind of the same route. What Brett was saying. I think during the whole pandemic, everybody kind of found their niche in certain things, and I felt like
Mhm.
this kind of popped out after that. Because before all that, I never really heard of that. Life coach and all that. So I would say I would almost be on the same realm with what Brett was saying. So I mean, but yeah, but I'm willing to learn. I want to see what everything has to come with being a life coach and what it's really about and all that.
Which is
Yeah.
exactly why you're on the tip touch.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's why you're here talking through it. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people experience that because it's such a vague title
Mhm.
that you just sort of picture like, I don't know, the kind of noisy guy at the bar that thinks he gives really, really good advice and is just overly confident. It's like, I'm a life coach now. And I'm good
Exactly.
for you. Or you
Yeah.
picture some like 25-year-old, you know, trust fund kid that's like, I'm just going to do coaching because I just want people to pay me to exist.
And they always wear sandals.
And they've always got sandals and like really big brimmed hats,
Yeah.
and that is a struggle. Like that is actually, that's a real thing in the life coach community of like, how do you define yourself in a way that people can actually understand what you do? Because for instance, unlike interior design, where people have a construct for what that looks like, coaching can be anything.
Hmm.
And you work with people in such intimate ways, but you can find your niche within that, right? You can work with people on emotion regulation. You can work with people on creating the life they want to live, or spirituality. So it is a real struggle to define the work that you do in a way that is concise and in a way that accurately represents what you're bringing into the world.
Yeah.
I started out after my bachelor's degree in psychology, working as a behavioral trainer and doing attachment therapy with kids from trauma backgrounds, which was work that I absolutely loved. It was at a
Hmm.
residential center, and it was super challenging, right? These were kids that were 3 to 13 years old, extreme neglect and abuse backgrounds, and they were there to heal. They were there to learn how to be safe in their bodies, how to securely attach to people for the first time, how to communicate, right? And how to redirect the behaviors that they'd learned that kept them safe, but were ultimately unfunctional in a family setting,
Yeah.
and take control of their lives for the first time. But they had really big behaviors, right? A lot of aggression, a lot of sneakiness, a lot of manipulation. And I loved it because it was kids. And
Yes.
every single day was new. And I got to do therapy in settings that were like breakfast time and school and playtime and when we were on hikes and during art therapy. And,
Wow.
it was just super, super diverse and really embodied. It's like one of the most effective things I could do with some of these kids that had never been safe enough to like go into their imagination and play, for
Mhm.
instance, was to take them to a park in the middle of the day when no one else was there and teach them how to do imaginative play, right? Like running around like wolves or pretending we're pirates. And it
Yes.
seems silly, but like so potent, right? So then when I
Yes.
moved into my master's program and I was sitting in a little like gray toned therapy room with my little button up shirt and you know,
Yes.
two people there for couples therapy, and they're really defensive. And I'm like, why don't we do this art therapy project? Like, draw yourself as a shape, pick a color, pick a shape. We're going to put it up on the wall and we're going to talk about why you picked that to represent yourself. And they just had so much resistance to it still, you know.
Yeah.
And like, we'd have this amazing conversation where they're like, well, I'm pointy because this, that, and the other, and this is how my defense mechanisms work. And we'd go so deep into it. And then at the end, like, their adult brains and their judgment brains would click back on and just be like, oh, well, this is dumb and this didn't do anything for us. And I'm like, were you present during the
Wow.
last 30 minutes? Like, did you hear what each other was just talking about? That's big stuff. So
Yeah.
it felt really constricted. And
It's
it took
almost
me
like you're
get back.
taking them out of the only world that they're aware of, and you
Mhm.
almost open this portal to this new excuse me, this new world that they didn't know existed. And
Mhm.
maybe even you knew something existed, you just didn't know what it was, and you guys get to discover that together, huh?
Yeah. Sometimes
So
if people are
when
open to it, you know,
yeah,
there are
so
some things that I think that are shifting though in the mental, like the traditional mental health field
yeah,
with therapy, especially, and the way that we approach mental health that allow more room for doing coaching, right? For being outside of the traditional interventions and doing more kind of explorative coaching, self-empowerment, right, of your clients rather than taking responsibility for the client's mental health, right? Really
okay,
setting them up to run that process themselves. So we'll see where that
gotcha,
goes soon.
okay.
Yeah.
So oh, go ahead, Eddie.
Oh no, you said something that really we touched base before on the podcast itself, where mental health was almost like a taboo back in the days. I remember just growing up, if you were to say you were going to go to a therapist or go to a counselor, like there was something wrong with you automatically. Like it was just an automatic answer to where, yeah, there's something wrong with that person. But as you know, I got older, I started listening to just different podcasts. They're really trying to approach mental health, and they were almost kind of, the way I kind of understood it was, it's almost like a tune up for a car. You want to tune yourself up every so often and talk to somebody, because you might be facing with a lot of things and you might not catch it yourself, but you know, before you know it, you do have a lot of, I guess, compression where you almost need to decompress. And I think that's where a lot of therapy comes in good to play, where you know, people could actually really benefit from it. So that's, yeah, I definitely wanted to say that, yeah, that is true. That's becoming more open, or people are becoming more open about it pretty much nowadays.
Yeah. And maybe that is having to do with technology as well. We just have so much more access to information now
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
able to not only validate our human experiences, right? So we've got a bunch of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s that are like, wait a minute, I still haven't figured this shit out.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what's going on? But we can communicate that now to each other and be like, does anyone have answers? And someone else yells from the other end of the like internet and is like, hey, I got something you could try. And we didn't have that right before.
Yeah.
And so now we have so much ability to communicate different ways of growing and so many different resources that we can access as far as mentorship or information or skill building, that will guide our journey and hopefully allow us to continue to explore or reparent ourselves, right? If there are things that we needed to learn when we were younger that our parents didn't have the ability to teach us, like we still need to do that in order to find our authentic voice and our grounding. And we're
Oh, there we
back.
go.
We're
Okay,
back. We're
yeah.
good.
We don't worry, guys. We hit portals from now and then, and you know, we were in a different dimension.
That was just a dimensional skip. Yeah, is what it
Exactly.
was.
Time
We're moving
warp.
through the dimensional sandwich.
So okay, that all sounds very good, very good. So tell us a little bit about what you are doing with the Rebound Way, and
Mhm.
that's your own program. That's something you've built from the ground up. And so who is looking at who's clicking on your site, your link?
Mhm.
Who is that? Who is your, I guess, your client, your what do you I don't know what you
Where are they
call.
at? What's the community?
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm building is a community. The Rebound Way is my coaching community that's focused on self-development and teaching people ultimately how to adapt effectively to change. And what that involves is learning emotion regulation, boundary setting, and embodiment, right? So I took 7 years off between my master's program and doing therapy and launching the Rebound Way to explore and kind of shake myself up, get myself out of the system, untrain myself a bit. Yeah. Do some exploration, like start to self-empower. I ran interior design companies for quite a number of those years. And right before 2020, ultimately realized that what was bringing the most joy in my work as a designer was coaching my coaching clients. And I worked primarily with men out of long relationships. So a lot of bachelors who were looking to reestablish their home, or they were moving, or their partner had passed away, or they were just out of a 15-year marriage. And so I was doing a lot of coaching, because when you show up to do interior design with people, you can do it on a surface level if you want, but like my brain doesn't work that way. So I show up, I'm like, okay, you've got this house, you're in a big life transition. Who are you? I got to know who you are in order to furnish your house, right? I need to know how you function during the day. Wow. I need to know what you want people to feel when they come here. Like if you're bringing another person to your home, are you hanging out and entertaining, or are you sort of like chilling in the backyard? So we ended up doing a lot of coaching around how they want their future to function. So then I was ultimately like, well, now I just feel a little creepy. I'm coming in as an interior designer and I'm like, yeah, we can talk sofas and pillows and like bed sheets, but like, how do you feel your life is going as a person? Like, what do you contribute to relationships? Is there anything unfulfilled? Like, who are you outside of your marriage? And we're digging in. So
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I should just market myself as a coach.
It's so funny. It's almost like you were this whole time.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, it just fell into your lap.
It fell into my lap. And I learned some amazing things running the design businesses, as far as showing up as my own individual entity, and being like, these are the things that I have to offer to the world. And it's a service exchange there. But ultimately leaning into the coaching field, I was like, where is my voice? What do I have to teach? What's changed my life the most? And that ended up being really that period of time when I started working with the kids from trauma backgrounds. Because what I learned working with them is I showed up, suddenly there's 25 kids, super, super manipulative, very smart children, because they have survived some of the most intense circumstances you could imagine, right? And I show up thinking I'm like a 20-year-old who's got a big authentic voice. Like, I don't let people mess around with me. I'm very confident. I grew up with brothers. So like, people don't give me shit. I'm a good person. And I show up with all these kids, and my job is to set boundaries with them, to give them structure, to express expectations, to redirect their behaviors so they can learn that it's safe to respond to stress in different ways. Yeah. And I realized, like, I have never set a boundary in my entire life.
Really?
I've never set a boundary in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know how to teach people how to treat me, right? I didn't know how to defend myself. I didn't know how to emotionally regulate. My emotions were so enmeshed with other people's emotions. And so I went through this whole process of learning how to redirect my anxiety, right? How to drop my emotions when other people escalate rather than escalating with them, so that I could be like a Zen Buddha when they're bigging out, and flailing all over the place and trying to like punch you and screaming.
So almost like the yin yang.
Yeah, it was a total yin yang moment. Yeah. So as I was revisiting this, building the Rebound, I was like, damn, I didn't learn that until I was 20, right? I didn't learn how to connect to my emotions. I didn't learn that I was a people pleaser. I didn't learn that my emotions were super, super enmeshed and kind of dependent on other people's. Like, I needed other people to be happy for me to feel okay. How to use my voice, how to step into my life and take up space. And all of that changed my life dramatically. And like, what if I had learned that when I was younger? So I started funneling all that information into the Rebound to build a community of people that are also on the journey of learning these skills. So they're all ages. They're male, female, lizards, dogs. Everybody's learning it these days.
Yeah.
But ultimately just trying to teach people what changed my life and allowed me to be grounded, to be connected, to be in my body, and ultimately in a place where I can make sure that I am in alignment because I have the tools to speak my truth, to ask for what I need and want and expect, and have those conversations from a place that's compassionate rather than defensive.
So you're using some words that are probably used a lot more in your settings,
Mm.
and that we don't talk that way in the real world. So like when you say embodiment, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and this is, it's beautiful.
Mm.
I myself have heard a lot of this stuff because,
Mm.
you know, I was a kid from Sharama and in foster care, had counseling my whole life, state counselors. And then it wasn't until I lost my first marriage that I realized that I tried dating, and I realized something was way off. And
Mhm.
here I was my whole life thinking it was everybody else.
Right.
And surprise, surprise, it was me. I'm the
Common denominator.
I'm the one that has the boundary issues. I'm the one that is the people pleaser, the manipulator, and
Mhm.
all these, everything that you just illustrated about what you see
Mhm.
was me. And but anyway, so just so everyone else understands, like when you talk about embodiment, what does that mean to the average person?
Embodiment is the ability to be in your body rather than up in your structured mind, right? Like everything you're talking about with manipulation and setting boundaries or not setting boundaries, seeking control, avoiding control, all of that is up in our mind. And those are, of course, coping skills that we learn when we're young to keep us safe and to connect, right? Not just as a defense mechanism, but as a connection mechanism, right?
Yeah.
If you needed to set your own emotions aside and prioritize the emotions of other people in order to connect with them and stay safe yourself
Mm,
as a kid, then yeah, you're going to learn how to be a people pleaser. But the
yes.
intention wasn't to separate yourself and shut your emotions down and be like, I'm not giving you any of my identity. The intention was to connect and to be safe. So
Yes. Yes.
embodiment is the ability to really be present with the sensations that are coming up in your body, to integrate your heart and your mind,
Mm,
and allow all of that to exist at once in a way that is much more fluid and much more present. So we reach embodiment through things like meditation, through breath work,
wow.
through slowly developing really a tolerance to safety in the
Mm,
body. Because for a lot
okay.
of us, like a lot of us don't feel safe to be in our bodies, right? Especially if we have overwhelming emotions like anxiety or fear or anger or guilt or resentment.
Yeah.
It's not safe to be here when we don't know what to do with those emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So embodiment is really just about creating that safety and being present.
Great. No, and that's a lot. That's great. Thank you for going into that. And then I know a lot of people pleasers. I was a people pleaser for the longest time. You yourself said you were a people pleaser,
Mhm.
and I hope I'm not throwing him under the bus. But I know my man Christian. He also has said that he had dealt with the same thing.
Yeah.
Eddie, are you a people pleaser? Were you?
I don't know. I'm actually thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know if I was or not. So I got myself thinking, you know, since we're having this good conversation, just thinking about a lot of stuff for myself. I'm like, man, am I really like that? Am I like this? So you got me questioning myself too as we're talking. So if I'm just like blank staring, that's probably why. But I would say probably not. That's just going off from what I can recall. But I don't know. Maybe I was. I don't know. I really can't remember.
No matter what you say, Eddie, you please me.
Okay,
Just as you
well,
are.
I did my job.
You're at
That's all
least
that
one
matters.
person pleaser.
Exactly, right there, right? Yeah, only a selected few. I'll say that.
The reason I asked that though is so you talk about parents as well and working with the parents. So for the parents listening that don't realize they're raising people pleaser children, what's one thing that a parent could look at and say, "Oh my gosh, this is what I'm doing. I'm creating a people pleaser." Um,
Oof, that is a good question. It's interesting. It's an interesting topic because there's no one thing that leads to someone stepping into this sort of people pleasing behavioral soup. I guess we can call it. That's the technical term, the behavioral soup of our lives.
I read that in a medical journal.
Yes, that's a DSM diagnosis for sure. For instance, like a lot of people might move into people-pleasing tendencies, but they didn't come from trauma, or they felt like they had parents that were super emotionally empowered, you know. But the way that we coped when we were children, the way our little baby 6-year-old, 8-year-old brains decided to interact with their environment and their family and their attachment figures, led them to people-pleasing behaviors. Which, so if we define that a little bit, right, first,
Yeah.
what is a people-pleasing behavior? It involves self-abandonment, right? So shutting your
Yes.
emotions down in order to prioritize the emotions of other people, or
Yep.
shutting your needs, wants, and expectations down. How else do you guys people please?
Well, for me, it was doing whatever I could to please the people that I looked up to. And
Mhm.
what I would find is I would neglect my own needs, and it would tend to get pent up, and I would tend to your needs still need to be met regardless.
Mhm.
And so in my ways it was lashing out. I would lash out just because I was so spent on pleasing everyone else that I couldn't nourish my own mental state. I
Yeah.
couldn't nourish my own needs that I could tell you honestly, I didn't even know I needed those needs until my whole life fell apart,
Yeah.
until finally, yeah, the house collapsed and I'm like, okay, I need to do something. And that was one thing I discovered was, oh my gosh, you've been a people pleaser your whole life. And
It's
I
very
don't know, just
confusing, the people
yeah,
pleasing dynamic, right? Because you on paper are a very good person. So your ego
yes,
is like, I'm a good person. I
yes,
show up for other people. I support other people. I prioritize them. I make them feel good. That's where my values lie. There's nothing wrong with any of this. Right. And
absolutely.
that's part of the reason why it's so hard to see and to get out of when you're in that kind of a behavioral habit. Um, and the paradox, of course, is yeah, you do value those things, right? That's inherent to your soul. Your soul's like, I want to be compassionate, I want to be connected. But because you are constantly self-abandoning and just giving, you haven't learned how to receive.
Mm.
You're actually showing up to all of these important moments where you're offering yourself to people, and you've got like 8% of your soul left because you've been spreading it so thin. And now
Mm.
you're not showing up authentically and connected and present to anything at
Yeah,
all. So the one thing you value and are working so hard to make sure that you are doing, you can't actually complete, right? Until you
yeah,
step back and start setting boundaries for yourself in a way that allows you to be resourced and connected and like fueled, and then giving from that place.
yeah,
So, I mean, leading into the parenting question,
yeah,
part of parenting children in a way that offers them emotional empowerment is making sure that you are resourced first,
mm,
right? As a person, making sure that you understand how to set your own boundaries, how to differentiate your emotional experiences and your thoughts and your feelings from the emotional experiences of other people,
yeah,
right? So breaking some of that codependency, building up some individualism in your relationships so that you aren't just like merging with your children or more merging with your partners, right? So it's like you come into the partnership with 100%, the other person comes in with 100%, and you make
yep,
200% together,
mm,
right? It's not
mm-hmm,
50-50, 100.
yep.
It's a third thing that you're creating.
And that, yeah, that 200 doesn't exist, and you're trying to force something exist that cannot possibly exist,
Right.
hence the blow up or whatever happens that, yeah, it ends
Mm-hmm.
up turning into a deficit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
Yep. So that's the
wow.
first thing you would do as a parent is just work on your own process, right? Because you cannot teach what you haven't learned. And a lot of
Yes.
us, I would say the majority of us, haven't been taught how to be emotionally regulated, right? How to regulate our nervous system, how to get out of survival states that may have been created in our bodies when we were kids, how to speak our truth in a way that feels safe. Like we weren't taught that stuff. So we have to go through the process of learning it and being humble in that process, right?
Yeah.
Not thinking I should have learned this and I don't need to anymore and it's other people's problems. Like we are all literally doing this, and our environment changes all the time. So it doesn't matter if you feel like you've learned it.
Yep.
Time has passed. Things are different. It's
Yes.
time to relearn some stuff, you know? But then in that same way, once you've gone through the process of learning that yourself as a parent and as a person, if you don't have children or you're not a guardian, you can offer then the children that you're raising the same experience, right? Offering them control over their body, teaching them how to speak their truth, teaching them how to process emotions in a way that doesn't shut them down, right? In a way that gives them autonomy and control. So a good example of this would be a lot of people feel uncomfortable when their children get hurt or when they have big overwhelming emotions and they go, oh, don't feel bad, or like, here's a treat, right? Or you know, it's okay, it doesn't hurt, like, here, play with this toy, you know, or they go the other extreme and they're like, oh no, you're emotional, you've been hurt, this is devastating for all of us involved, right? So instead of moving to one of those extremes of either shutting down the emotions or amplifying them, you offer the children validation in what they're experiencing, right? You help them describe it. You're like, oh, you're feeling anxiety about climbing up to that high height, or you're feeling worried that this scraped knee might continue to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel in your body? Why don't you take a few deep breaths with me? You know, and then you go, how are you feeling now? And what would you like to do? Would you like to take a break? Would you like to go back to playing? Is there something you can think of that would make you feel better?
Wow.
Right.
So you're really just opening, it's a pathways of communication, of dialogue, and really taking in what they have to offer, what's going on in their heart. And children, you know, me being a father of 2 girls, I don't know how boys are, but I know when I was a boy, I was just all over the board. Girls, though, they're so internal, you know, and sometimes it's very hard to get my children to open up, very hard. And so I have to spend a lot of time sometimes, like, hey, building that trust, opening that dialogue, and what you're talking about, patience. And it takes more patience, you know, and I'll share this too. We were talking about the kids getting hurt. I want to tell you my technique and you tell me if I'm doing it wrong. My kid, my youngest daughter, she's 4, she'll be 5 in July. She stabbed her pinky with a pencil, and she was crying, and I took a look at it and I said, probably gonna have to cut it off, you know. Went hysterical. And
well,
now she knows I'm a jokester, right? And so I said, honey, I'm kidding, but she's already crying. But she loves, what she does love though is she loves that I take care of her. You know, I immediately, you know, go down and, you know, I'm getting the Neosporin, I'm cleaning it out, you know, taking time, but I'm talking to her throughout the whole thing. And I go, you know, see all these scars on my hands? Daddy has done that a million times. I cried too, honey. And that seemed to just be what she loves hearing, because then after the wound heals, she's not hurt, she's not focused on the pain. It'll be 2-3 days later and the band-aid's finally coming off, you know, in the tub. And she'll look at it and she'll go, did you do that when you were a kid? And she just loves to hear me say yes. She loves to hear that I've been through those things as well, and that I reacted the same way, so that maybe she doesn't feel different. Maybe that I don't know if it's relational, but she loves when I share those experiences.
Well, I've got something to say about that, but what are you thinking, Ed?
I mean, that's something that I would do as being just a jokester and like just kidding around, just to, like, you know, obviously not put so much, just to pretty much calm my daughter down, because I'm a father too. I have a little girl, she's 3 years old, and I think it's just for me, it's just from a guy's perspective. You just want to give comfort, you know, to your child at that point, you know, just to make sure they're okay and they're good. I mean, like I said, it would be something I would do as well. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of connection is important, right? That kind of humility and connection, but also, Brett, what you were kind of talking about is allowing yourself to be a part of the journey, right? If you're a humorous person, you're a humorous person.
Mhm.
And there's a difference, of course, between avoiding their pain with humor versus dramatizing it in a way that can kind of it just brings a humanness to the situation, right? But you are also getting down there and you are showing up and you're having a conversation with her and you're relating to her. And ultimately, what you're teaching her is this is normal for the body to experience.
Yep.
Look what happens. We get all these scars when we heal.
Mhm.
And my hand's totally good. Like, we don't have to lose the pinky. You're going to be all right, you know?
Yeah.
And here's the really interesting thing about children when they come into this world. They seem like these teeny tiny little squeaky new baby souls, right? That know nothing. But when you're a child, you are, how do I explain this in the way that doesn't go totally woo-woo? Kids come into this world and they know that they're incredibly powerful and they have to be powerful in order to survive. So even a baby that is 15 months old is already incredibly skilled at manipulating the adults around them to take care of them, right?
Yeah.
So
I believe
even
that.
pre-verbal children are incredibly skilled at manipulating people. And part of that is subconscious, right? It's the brain mirroring the things around them to connect. It's those big giant eyeballs, you know, it's like the hormones of the baby and the mother and the father. It's the whole thing.
Wow.
But consciously, before children can speak, they know that they're powerful because they need to be. And they don't want to feel alone in that, right? They don't want to feel like, man, my parents aren't showing up and setting boundaries with me. My parents aren't relating to me. My emotions make them feel uncomfortable, right? Like, or they don't take me seriously. They're not teaching me how to be in this body. This might not sound like how a child experiences their world, but it is, right?
Yeah.
So by showing up and saying, hey, it's cool. You got this. Look,
Yeah.
I've been through this as well. And I'm not going to freak out because you're freaking out. So in that moment, you are teaching them, I am a person of power as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to offer structure. I'm going to teach you how to be in the world and how to respond to the environment and how to choose to do that yourself so that you know that you're powerful, but you also know that I am powerful because you cannot manipulate me. I'm keeping you safe. I have boundaries that I'm expressing. And so we're in this together, right? So when you don't do that, and a lot of parents aren't taught this, right? So they sort of, they lose their boundaries because they want to support and love their children. So they give, or they avoid setting boundaries with treats or with threats or general emotional enmeshment.
Yeah.
And then the child feels alone because they say, wow, like if you're a giant human adult and you can't even use your power, that means I'm more powerful than you. And that is fucking terrifying.
So that right there, though, like I have goosebumps because I'm going, I had no idea that these kids felt that they had power. Because now I'm going to look at my daughter a little bit different, you know, like, do you think you have a crown right now? Do you think you have authority right now? What's going on? You know?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
good conversation.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it's interesting too when you touch bases on, you know, when you were saying that they can be a 14-month-old baby. And I believe that. I believe that they're intelligent to the point where they can manipulate the whole situation where I can get this from dad and this from mom, like either one. And I 100% stand by that, you know, because I feel like, you know, growing up with some nieces and nephews and with my own daughter, it almost felt like that, but I didn't know. I didn't want to tell my wife that, you know, she knows what she's doing, even though she's like this little small baby, but it's like she knows what she's doing. And it's just, you kind of solidified that for me today. So it's just like, mind blown.
Yeah,
So,
they know. And the way that you offer them that power and the way you balance it essentially is by offering them choices for how they move through their life, but also pairing those choices with limits, right? So you have your boundaries as a parent, which might be whatever, you need to clean your room. Might be you need to clean your room, you need to do your homework, or you need to eat your dinner, right? That's your limit. Like they've got to do it. You're requiring it. That's the thing. But you can be like, you can eat your dinner on the floor if you want, or at the table, right? Or you can clean your room in the morning or in the afternoon, or you can clean your room with pajamas on your head, or like in a crazy outfit. Like whatever, you give them the choice to choose what they do with their body
Yeah.
within the limit of your own boundaries. So both of those things exist at the same time.
I've got that sort of training with what's funny. As a supervisor at a previous company, they taught you that
Did
with
they?
your employees. They would
Yeah.
say, you are a supervisor and this is your department. And this is the job that needs to get done. Your job is to, or a technique you can use is give them a choice. Exactly like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
This has to get done, but I'm going to let you choose how it's going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives gives them that empowerment. Even as adults, it's funny that still works.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's
Wow,
almost
it's
like
almost
we're
universal.
just children our entire lives,
I think we
constantly
are.
learning.
Yeah,
I
that's true.
tell Eddie all the time I'm still a kid,
Yeah.
Oh, same here. Big kid, man. That's it.
one thing I want to, I said in our emails that I would talk a little bit about my past, and it's
Mhm.
cool because I love talking with people like you have a psychology
Mhm.
background in psychology, word salad here, and I love exploring things and I love talking about things because man, my journey through counseling, and I recommend counseling to any and everybody because you would be so surprised at what you can learn even when you don't think there's stuff to learn
Yeah.
just by having someone there to bounce ideas off of. So anyway, you were talking about the emotions about earlier. You said, okay, you're a grown adult and you haven't figured out how to. So that brought me back to when I was a kid and abuse in the home, abused by my everyone, right? And physical abuse. And I just remember though, I always had a sense of humor, and no matter what, it was just the weirdest thing. But I would see my parents fly off the handle. I mean, we're talking somebody would forget to check the mail, and then the other parent would start yelling, right? And
Mm-hmm.
me as a kid, I was like, is it that serious? And I would laugh because it was just too extreme for me. I couldn't believe that somebody would freak out. And so I didn't know that that was adding to my trauma. That was sort of, those were the beginning days of my trauma
Mm-hmm.
because all I remember is laughing about it. I remember one time we were at the dinner table and, my brother's dad slammed his fist on the table, knocked all the drinks over only because we were laughing at the dinner table. And I'm going, we are kids. I mean, even as a child, I understood we are kids and kids laugh, we giggle. But and so when I saw that go to that level, I found it funny. I mean, and I hated laughing because I would get, I would get hit. I'd get the shit kicked out of me, but I couldn't
Right.
stop myself. So I'm thankful that I was able to maintain my humor through all of it.
But it was protective as well.
Yeah, well, I guess the whole thing, it just reminded me that yes, kids do recognize when the adults fly off the handle. They understand that, okay, you're over the limit. And that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I wouldn't have even thought of that had you not said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kids are hyper
Yes.
aware, even better
Ooh.
than we are because they're not attuned to the environment yet. They're not used to tuning out or to
Mm.
projecting their emotions onto other people to keep, like, they don't have those safety blankets in place. They're in the process of creating them. So they're hyper attuned to everything relational in the family system and actively choosing how they respond and how they don't, right? And they're
Hmm.
so intelligent, right? You're like, I know that
Absolutely.
I'm laughing because I know that this is crazy and I can't exactly tell you why and I can't conceptualize what that means for me, but like,
Hmm.
I'm going to laugh because that makes me feel better and also gets me as close to understanding it as I possibly can. But
Yeah.
like, I'd be so curious if you felt like sharing what's shifted, like what's shifted through you for your for you through your own healing journey when it comes to, I guess, processing environments and moments and situations that are intense
What
or maybe
shifted?
don't make sense. Yeah, like how do you do that in a way that feels grounded for you now?
Oh, well, now it's easy. So if I I'm trying to think what, because I'm so grounded now that it takes a lot. So you got me now. So here's what I think of. I see something going on, and I love being a dad. And my daughter, she loves pushing her limits.
Mhm.
And what it where she pushes my limits is bedtime. And she does not want to go to bed when I have to go to bed. I work early in the morning, so I have to go to bed early. And nope, she's rambunctious, she's wild. Um, so that shift, where that shifted was knowing that the impact of everything that I do, she is a sponge. She watches everything.
Mhm.
Now, you talk about boundaries. That is one thing I had to learn myself. I had to learn boundaries. And it wasn't, I didn't get serious about this until I became a father myself. And I read this book called Boundaries, written by
Mhm.
Henry Townsend. You know the book?
Mhm.
Great book. I don't even know if I have it anymore, because I've lent it out so many people. It had such a profound impact. That and a book by Meg Meeker, Dr. Meg Meeker, called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. Those two books, coupled with counseling, got were my foundational base. Um, but so that was where it shifted, was knowing in inside inherently that everything I do, she's going to parrot. And
Mhm.
if not now, she's going to parrot right now, but she's not going to parrot that if I fly off the handle. She won't parrot that in front of me because she won't do it, but she will at school. She
Mhm.
will with her friends because I was there. I did that stuff. I saw it all myself. So that when I knew, having that background, knowing what it was, that was the shift when I became a parent, was like, okay, rubber meets the road. You can't fuck this up. You've got to be the father that I never had. You've got to be the parent, the husband, the everything that I never had.
Yeah.
And that helps. It helps. It really helps having that background, and the repair that came with it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you shared that. Kids have this incredible ability of like pulling out all of those unacknowledged, like deeply buried weaknesses that we just
Mhm.
don't want to address, and they like pull it out of you. Even if like, you're going into this situation with kids where you're like, I don't want to repeat my past. Like, let me learn what I can learn and redo this thing. I'm going to reparent myself so that I can parent them. But a lot of people don't necessarily do that, right? They just step in like, woo, we're doing the thing. It's life. We have kids. We have a relationship. Here we
Yep.
go.
Yep.
And if you're in that situation, like it doesn't matter what you do, kids are going to pull out all those little unacknowledged parts of you that you haven't worked on yet, but they're not
Mm.
just going to like highlight them to you, right? They're going to put them in a bag full of baby shit and diapers, and they're going to light it on fire, and then they throw it in the kitchen, and then when you stomp it out and it's a big mess, they're going to blame you for making a big mess of it, right? Like you're gonna have to address it and take full responsibility, even though you want to be able
Uh-huh.
to blame parenting or blame child rearing or blame your kids for it. Like it's all the stuff that you haven't yet addressed and taken responsibility for.
Wow.
But in that same way with kids, like, you spoke about your kids not necessarily opening up about their inner world sometimes with you, right? So my offering to you, I guess, in this experience was to be, how can you model that? How can you offer them an opportunity to parrot open communication,
Mm,
vulnerability, sharing what's going on in them,
mm.
and just giving them the opportunity to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's my oldest one. She lives in with her mom, and so we don't get to talk as much.
Mm.
And that's where the challenge is because we have a very close relationship, but because I'm not there with her full time,
Mhm.
it's I'm trying to get sometimes the littlest of details. Hey,
Mhm.
what's going on with your life? Hey, you're 13, and I know when I was 13 I was already like wanting to date girls, and are
Yeah.
you thinking those things? And you know, I'm dad, so those topics aren't even allowed to get brought up. And
Yeah.
that's I guess one thing that I'm gonna be focusing on,
Mhm.
with her, is just that, how to open that up, how to create that dialogue, create that trust, and that, I guess, that invite.
Mhm.
I
How
don't
would
know.
you go about doing that? Either of you. You've got some time to think
Oh,
about
Eddie,
it,
you're gonna
Ed,
go
but
next. You're gonna
Oh
go,
man.
and I'll think about mine.
Yeah, I mean, just building that, man, that, I mean, for me, just parenthood right now. I mean, this is our first child, our first kid. And, every day is a new thing. And just, obviously no one gives you a book to, like, I mean, you probably can buy a book now teaching like how to be a parent for dummies or whatever. But for me, it's like the experience of, I think to myself, right? I look back at time, and I think we brought this up a little bit earlier about, what did my parents not do for me growing up as a kid, what I could do for my kid, And I think my parents, even before, when they would talk to me about, parenthood and all that, when they knew they were going to be grandparents, they would just try to give me the best advice: be patient, obviously love your child, be there for your wife, all that stuff. And for me, like, my mind is like in scramble mode at this point, because I'm thinking about years ahead. Like, she's a
Mhm.
girl, the dating. Is she gonna be able to trust me? Am I gonna have that open relationship with her? For her to be able to tell me just if anything's bothering her. Because you do hear a lot of that stuff, right? Where, building that strong relationship with your child as they get older, to where they're comfortable enough to come out and like tell you stuff that maybe they feel uncomfortable telling you. They can only tell their best friend or whatever.
Mhm.
But for me, I mean, just, I guess, try to be as open with her as much as possible about, like, reminding her that as she gets older, you can talk to me about anything. If it's anything that you feel like you can talk to mom about, and it's just something that you can tell mom, that's fine. But I would want to, just keep reminding her, we can be best friends too. You can talk to me about anything you want to talk about, whether if it's something that's bothering you late at night, you can't sleep or something like that. I'm in open ears for you whenever, however. So it's a challenge, because, like I said, I'm going on this day by day, and it's a new experience for me, every day. So it's just like, you're kind of rolling with the punches at the same time, because, like I said, it's an experience, and just being a first time dad, it's almost like really need to do your best. Just when those time when we cross that bridge, we just need to be on our A game and on our toes. Like, once those just situations happen, I guess, or when they occur, and just reminding myself too, you have to just do the best you can.
Yeah.
You're gonna fail. Obviously, you're gonna you're gonna feel like you probably didn't do enough. And I think that's one thing for me. It's like, I ask myself, do I do enough? Have I done enough? Can I do more? So for me, it's just like, just being there as a father, husband, but as she gets older, a best friend too, because that's one thing I definitely do want to say. Like, I want to have a good relationship with my daughter as she gets older. So
Mhm.
I don't know if I answered the question, but that kind of came out as like, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
No, I mean,
it's a big
yeah.
thing too, especially like with a 3-year-old and as a
yeah,
first time parent. Your knowledge of parenting shifts every 3 to 6 months. You're like
mm,
suddenly in a new developmental stage. And you're like, well, shit.
I believe that.
I
Yeah.
just grounded myself in how to respond to this kid in this particular mode of their life. And now they're in a completely new one, and I have to learn all over again.
Mhm.
Yeah. The life of a parent,
Definitely.
man. Yeah, I
So
believe that.
this is sort of what I do. This is my technique, and I'm really, I want your feedback, um, because I really, it's is uncharted territory for me. And but my technique is with my older daughter, now that she thinks like a young adult, and she's processing things in a more, I'm noticing as she gets older, in a more adult manner. And with me, especially not living with her full time, it's almost like she wants me to see the best side of her. She only
Mhm.
wants me to see the good. She doesn't necessarily want me to see the bad, and the challenging, the hard things, because I'm not there every single day. So when the time that we do have together, she just wants to say, hey, we only have this short time together. Let's just make the the best. This is where my good memories come. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's almost like that's my, I don't want to say my role, but it's what we have. That's been our time. But what I do with her is I do share some things. I don't go into, you know, detail, but I tell her, you know, dad had a really, really rough upbringing. I didn't have anyone to sit down and talk with. And just know that I made so many mistakes, so many mistakes. And I guarantee you, honey, if you think that you're making a mistake, I can already tell you that I've made that same mistake 10 times more than you and 10 times worse. Daddy really was a rough, had, you know, rough edges. And so, honey, I am here. I am here. I'm patient. You know, if there's something that you need to work on or something we can, I am there with you. And I will share everything that I know about that. Don't believe me. I'm not judging you. Don't ever feel like I'm looking at you and I'm disappointed. You know, this is all natural.
Mhm.
That's my technique, is just to really just let her know that this is life. Life is so complicated, and as you get older it gets more complex, and there's more nuances to the situations. There's friends, there's, you know, you think it's new to you, but believe me, this stuff is, you know, this is all natural. The human mind,
Mhm.
where those hormones, when you're
Naturally
going into
crazy
those new
making.
stages, yeah, it's just like, I'm so old to you, but I've been there.
Yeah. 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 And it's so beautiful to be showing up and making sure that those lines of communication, and they at least are hearing it on some level, that those are open. What
Mhm.
I would really be curious to know about is, do you do that in a way in the present moment? Right. Ed, you talked about wanting to make sure that your daughter knows that you are her friend as well and can be
Yeah.
there as a friend. And when you imagine a friend, right, it's an equal hierarchy. There's a meeting
Mm,
of minds. And of course, as a parent, there are boundaries that can and will benefit you to have in place when it comes to, you know, processing your relationship, for instance, and keeping the parental hierarchy there, right? There is supposed to be a parental hierarchy because that
yep.
allows children to feel safe. But when you're showing up as a friend, you are processing things in the moment, right? So you're processing what happened during your day. You're teaching your child, if you bring them into that, that you are also a person in process, because they're very aware that they're a person in process, because they're like, bro, my brain is developing, my body feels crazy, I don't have the answers, everything feels like it's going to fall apart, it's everything is so important, even when they're little, right? So
Yeah.
I guess my challenge to you, and also
Mhm.
what can be really beautiful, is to bring them into whatever's going on in your life in that moment,
Mm,
in a way that you would with a friend, right? You're not going to go to your friend and necessarily dive fully into your relationship problems, for instance, or like fully into, you know, some stuff you keep private and you keep it to
yeah.
yourself or keep it with your partnership. But you're going to show up and be like, I had this thing happen at work today, and it made me feel really insecure. And I had all this anxiety in my body and it was showing up
Wow.
in my stomach. And if I had like a 3-year-old, I would ask them what they would do about that. I'd be like, do you know what anxiety is? Do you ever feel like a
Wow.
flipping of your stomach, or asking your 13-year-old, like, what do you think I should do in this situation? You know, like,
That's,
there's so many things I
yes.
could do. What are your ideas? And sometimes children come up with the most brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
But that is something that normalizes the conversation about being in process in the moment, right? And
I
teaches them that it's okay to do that, and encourages future conversations when they're going through that, where they're like, dude, I just feel crazy in my body and I don't know what to do about it.
huh. Yeah, I know that I don't come at that friend to friend level. I've always been the dad, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. I love that. Challenge accepted.
But it shifts a little bit, right? When you're like, I have so much I could teach you. Just let me know if you like have anything to ask, right? It's great to communicate that, but that's all in theory, right? That's saying
Mhm.
I could potentially help you with something in the future, maybe because I've been
Mhm.
through it. But it's not like in the moment, yeah, you know, I have this stuff from my past that still kind of creeps up sometimes. Like, this is what I'm chewing on right now. And this is
Yeah.
kind of how I'm going about trying to solve this problem, like getting into the process of how you solve problems as a person. and how you grow as a person, and sharing that with your kids is ultimately like going to give them so much juicy empowerment where they're like, oh, okay, like it's not just that my parents know all this stuff that they can help me with. My parents are still people, and they're still trying to figure out how to be the best people that they can be. And like, I can relate to that. Right. And we
Yeah.
can share that journey and that learning and that vulnerable space where you don't know what to do, but you're allowing yourself to find out. You can share that with them.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
But you're doing a good job, both of you. You're doing great.
No,
You're
thank
doing
you.
great. You know, it's like you can't plan for it, right? Every kid
Yeah.
that you get is going to bring up different things for you. Every developmental stage is going to bring up different things for you. But ultimately, you know, just committing to your own growth in the present moment is going to give them the biggest gifts, right? If you're allowing yourself to grow along with them. So
Awesome.
good job. Good job, you guys.
Gold star.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
we are, we're coming up on our time where I think we might have even went over a little bit, but in closing, I just wanted to thank you for coming onto the Tip Touch and sharing so many awesome things. I hope that our listeners got as much out of this as we did. I mean, this
For
is
sure.
Yeah. Thank you for
we
having
don't
me.
normally have a podcast like this, but
I know we didn't
Chris,
get to Bigfoot yet, but you know, next time.
next time.
Definitely.
But so I know I have your stuff on there, but can you just tell people, like, a little bit about, like, hey, come to my website, or how can
Yeah.
people get into touch with you?
If anyone that is listening to this is looking for mentorship around right now emotion regulation, boundary setting, or how to be in their body and find safety there and really move into this emotional empowerment state of being, you can find some of my low-cost courses on thereboundway.com, right? And I've got one up right now on anxiety, annihilating anxiety, on boundary setting, on compassionate boundary setting, and more to come. And you can also check out my Instagram or my TikTok at the Rebound Way. It's the_rebound_way, where I'm just trying to like offer as much free kind of content to get people not only empowered and thinking, but collectively joining in on this process of learning how to love change and how to feel confident with that process of just being uncomfortable through it, but like trusting it, right? And allowing themselves to come out of the other end a little more fully themselves. And I also work with clients one-on-one. If someone wants to go into exploring what it feels like to work with a coach and lean into that process of guiding their journey with a little bit more support.
Oh, that's great.
Definitely.
Thank you, Eliah.
But thank you guys so much for having me. It's been awesome to talk about this.
Of course.
Absolutely.
It was a good conversation.
And we'd love to have you on again if there's something, you're doing a new course or you're taking a new direction. Please reach out to us, and we would love to do it. Maybe we can even get Christian on an episode, and
we
the
should
four of us can just get
absolutely,
crazy.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
we should absolutely do that. We could talk about people pleasing or not people pleasing all day long.
Yeah.
I've got a course
Absolutely.
coming out in the next few weeks also on Dungeons and Dragons and using role play therapeutically. So that's a
Oh,
good
wow.
one if you know any D&Ders.
Oh, nice.
You know?
That's pretty
I
interesting.
don't.
Eddie
I don't
just,
either.
you just lit up though.
No, it's just like because it seems so cool to do, but it's one of those things where like I don't know if I could pull it off, like acting and all that. I mean, just for me, from my personal opinion, but it just seems like a cool own little world, like the own little
Absolutely.
community they have, so
Yeah,
it's cool.
I know it is. Well, we all need the ability to create and play if
Yeah.
we're going to move through feeling stuck or wanting to be a different person or feel differently in our bodies. So it all kind of connects, surprisingly. But yeah, it should be juicy, and I'd love to show up again and have some conversations with you guys.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, good luck with you and building your community. It sounds like you are just going to knock this out of the park, and
Thank you.
it's just beautiful.
Thank
So,
you.
Eddie, do you want to finish us off here?
Yeah, for sure. So we're gonna close this episode off. Definitely, Eliah, thank you for coming by on the Tip Touch podcast. It was a good conversation, and we're gonna provide the socials underneath the description on our YouTube page when this drops. Friday, because we're recording this. Yeah, well, when this drops, we'll have all their socials down below in the description, so where you can reach her at and get in contact her if you want to go through some coaching. So we're going to wrap this one up. Check all our content on all major streaming platforms such as YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn FM Radio. And go check us out on Instagram at the Tiptech Podcast if you're not following, where we provide all small clips and just up-to-date stuff with what's going on with the podcast. But till then, take care. Have an awesome Friday, awesome weekend. We love you. Take care. Peace.
Ciao. Cheers.